Okay, so this is the first Unify webinar for 2023. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully my screen is still being shared correctly. Yep. And what we're looking at is a subset of a portfolio of projects. This subset's called Webinar. And I'm just going to take you through a few little bits and pieces that have been introduced to us by our users over the last 6 months. So the first one was really interesting in that it was actually put to us in a way that says this little feature works 95% of the time. Why doesn't it work 100? And we didn't even know that it existed. So we had to have it shown to us first before we could work out what was there were little 5% issues with it. What I'm going to do is basically use that as an opportunity for demonstrating probably a lightly used feature in Unify and just bring that in first, and then I'll bring in the bit that was unknown to us. And the bit that I'm going to be showing you is what's in the Documents module. So I'm just going to click on Documents. And it relates to the ability to drag and drop. So a lot of people like to drag and drop, and we brought that feature in quite some time ago now. But in this example, what I'll do is I'll just show you how to kick off a document workflow quite easily and quickly through drag and drop, and then how that would then flow through to being edited. So I have some fictitious drawings here that I'm releasing in a concept design phase to a collaboration of users, and I've highlighted them there in Windows Explorer, and I'm just dragging them up into the little plus area. And you can see that actually kicks off the document. So a lot of people think that you have to actually create a document and then upload into the document. You can actually kick off the document workflow directly from within Windows Explorer. I'm just going to select, so these are any template now that has a file upload control in it. And I'll just select this consulting contract here. You can see that the name is grayed out. So that just means it has a automated naming convention configured within this particular template, so you don't actually name it yourself. And then what will happen is that the rest of the steps appear for you to populate what you need. And when I jump to the document step, you'll see the 4 text files that I uploaded previously. So I'm just going to get to the end step here now. And one of the other sort of lessons learned around this is with drawing collaboration, you don't really sign off until it's pretty much as built, is the sort of idea. And so what might happen, as you saw before, is that there were other documents here that I didn't upload. So there's a revision and a new drawing. So again, people may not know that even within this step, I've gone open for review. That's now published. If I come back to the documents and refresh this screen, you'll see a private document there. And sorry, there should be an open for review one if I was. There it is there, this one that didn't have the contract variable populate. And I might want to edit that. You can actually just edit it by clicking back into the wizard. You don't have to create this document again and view it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to click back to the related documents there. And you can see that will increase the version of this particular document, just telling you that, just in case you didn't want to do that. And what I'm going to do is replace these with the new version. So if I just tick that, you can see it says replace attachments. But again, I don't need to click on the little button there. I can just highlight the replaced versions into here. And now they're the latest release. And so when I come back into this and open for review again, and I click the little view document here, you'll see that it has related documents here, and then in the superseded documents here. And so that's been a sort of common workflow in Unify for quite some time, but the key bits around that was that not a lot of people know about the fact that you can just drag that in. You can actually drag it into anywhere where the file upload control exists. So if you're working on an issue and you want to drag these files into a comment, you can do the same thing. And so without having to click the add comment icon, I can just drag those in and the comments come into the system there. And so wherever you see that file upload, that drag and drop capability is there for you to look at. Now, what was unknown to us was the ability to drag emails into Unify. And so this only works, well, this doesn't work in Firefox, which is probably one of the reasons we didn't know it existed, because most of our dev team use Firefox as the default web browser. We obviously test across the whole range, but yeah, this was brought to our attention from someone who was using Chrome, which is what I'm doing this webinar in. I'm using the Chrome web browser. And so I've got 4 emails here in my inbox, and normally in Unify, we would use the email add-in to log these in. When you use the add-in, you get the ability to log them in as an issue or as a document. You can add to an existing issue or document or create a new. And when you do that and you save it into the system, you then get the link to that issue if you want to go and browse it. And that's done. And that's been the methodology that we use and that I'll still use, even though I know this functionality exists now, to categorize and allocate work that comes in via email. However, what you can do, and you can even do this for bulk emails in one go, you can highlight all 4 and in the same process, just scan the emails into the system, and it will kick off another workflow. Let's do that one more time. Didn't like one of them. Yeah, that's blocking it. That's great. Okay. Worked in the trial run. Let's try again. I'll get rid of that vendor panel one. Okay, that's better. And so you can see it's kicked off the document flow, which is that 5% kicking in when they said how come issues like scanning of the email and things like that within the browser are stopping that from happening. So we've now kicked off that. I'll put it into the same template that we just saw before, into the same project. And when I get to the related documents this time, you'll see that there's 3 email messages there. So similar to products like One Place Mail and other email storage systems, you can actually use Unify as a metadata structure for capturing emails. So the metadata would be around the template being used. You saw I used a contract template in that instance. You would capture, your template list so that when people kick off that process again, I'll just demonstrate it again. I'll just do the one this time. They're hopefully classifying the correct category, and you can filter that down if you want to see the drawing subset. You've got your drawing transmittal templates there, whatever the classification is, and then that enables you to filter on those in the document system later in this register here and see, show me all the drawings that relate to a project or across the portfolio or within our webinar space. And you can add extra bits of metadata into these documents. So you'll see in the document step here, there's drop downs here that you can create that capture more metadata. And when you do that, you can then use the advanced search within this feature to say, according to my design drawing template, it has a drop down called floor level. Show me all of the floor levels related to the 2 basement levels, and hit search, and it will return all the drawings that have that option selected. So, and that would have all the emails that corresponded to that. So you can kind of design however you want to use that workflow. And then people get to dump emails. So the problem I've always had with dumping emails into a system is that unless the metadata is really good and you've got a great search, it can become just as bad as having it in an inbox and not being able to find anything. So there is a little bit of a risk to all of that. There's a few other disadvantages to filing your emails that way. The biggest one is the inability to assign and create actions and due dates to issues that need to be addressed. And then the other one is that the communications system tracks email correspondence. You can actually filter for email. And if you've logged it in, this is the one I logged in using the Outlook add-in just a few minutes ago. If you're logging that in this way, it'll automatically allocate to a whole bunch of different places. So for example, if I was to go in and look at Annie Lennox's profile, I have in her correspondence, this is Annie Lennox, I have all of the commentary that's basically gone against Annie over a period of time, including emails, documents, other collaborations. If I don't use the Outlook add-in, that type of automatic filing doesn't occur. The way that works is Unify looks into the system for anyone with the email address that your email has, and will automatically have that email appear against their record, as well as where you've logged it when you've hit the save to Unify. So there's a fair bit of benefit around being able to allocate and do due dates and then be able to track correspondence. And it's not just at a person's level, it's at an organization level. If I go into the Optimum Construction organization that Annie belongs to here, I get correspondence that looks across all of the people who exist at that organization, and I can filter for any proposals we've sent to them or other documents, and I'll be able to get the document and the email and all that other good stuff contextualized. So does it eliminate the Outlook add-in? To me, no, but maybe to you, yes. And I thought it was a pretty cool thing brought to us by a gent who was just trying to actually raise an issue with it, then assuming we already knew that you could do that sort of thing. Okay. The next one was brought to my attention when I was working with a frontline support team. And in this instance, it was actually my daughter, who is the person who is one of the people on our support site. So a lot of people are using our chat function from the website. If you go on to unify.com.au, you'll see a chat box come up, Zendesk integration with our website. And when you're chatting to that, you may be chatting to my daughter, who's been fantastic. Was born when we started developing this application and now supports it fantastically. And she was showing me how she groups things together, because she'll have different clients contacting her, and she'll be reviewing different issues within their deployments. And I thought that was pretty cool. And so one of the things, this is all web browser based stuff, right? So it's not actually Unify software development that's providing this capability. Same with the drag and drop. That's actually the web browser allowing you to do that. And so these aren't really, that's why we didn't know about them. These aren't really Unify developed things. They're just how to use a web browser really well. And one of the things that you should really try to use when using Unify is to have multiple tabs. Sometimes it'll open the tab automatically for you, but if you middle mouse or if you right mouse and say open a new tab, you could end up having quite a lot of tabs open. I know a lot of people do, but some people don't even know that you can do that in a browser. It's a pretty advantageous thing. You can see here that if I click design drawings, it automatically opens in a new tab. Whenever you right mouse button and the option's not there, that means it's going to do it for you anyway. It's a design issue, a design thing that we've put into the system. Now, I've got 5 tabs open here. You can imagine if you had 10 or 5 customers contacting you at any point in time. What you can do is you can actually right mouse button on the tab. Now, this is a Chrome thing only. Again, it's not a Firefox thing. And you can say add tab to a new group. And when you click that, it comes up with a little pop-up, and you can put a color on it and you can put a name. And so I'm going to call this one webinar. And then so I've got this little blue webinar thing. I haven't got any other tabs in it yet, but I just drag that into here and it all becomes part of the one group. And then I can click on webinar and it disappears. Right, so you've got 100 tabs. You've now grouped 5 together. You've got 95 tabs, and you can merrily go off and see how you can be a better snob by reading up on the 1855 Bordeaux classification, or you might be just ordered your Tesla and you're looking at the Tesla carriers spreadsheet and seeing when it's going to land at shore. Whatever you're doing, you can see at the same time I've got these 2 tabs. I've still got this webinar group here. And so then the customer that you've just solved their problem with comes back 15 minutes later with another question. You can quickly just jump back to that, and you've got your tabs there ready to browse into those. So I guess if you're not supporting multiple customers, to me, it's still like you're doing other things outside of Unify. You may have 5 modules or 2 modules or 3 modules in the system that you're often using. You could potentially have those set up as a default kind of grouping at the start of the day, so that when things come in and you need to address them, you've got them there, but they're not cluttering up all the other stuff you're doing in a web browser. because you've got it under a little group called Unify, if you like, and you can hide and expand it whenever you need. So I didn't know that you could do that. I'm not a person that tends to have a lot of tabs open at the same time anyway, but being a bit of a sort of OCD organizing person, but and you know, these groupings are a little bit OCD as well, but I thought it was pretty cool. That's how she is helping you guys on the front line of support, and thought I'd bring it to your attention today. Okay, the next one is a little bit longer, and maybe won't apply to everyone in the group, but probably worth having a follow anyway, because it's it shows you that people will Unify as a platform product, and it comes out of the box kind of configured to some clients' workflows, but others will need to develop their own and configure it to them, and they do it themselves. And this is a workflow that one of my clients has developed to manage purchasing. And so, you know, for contractors and builders, and this would be perfect. They're actually managing projects in a warehouse. It's job management more than project management, and purchasing is a big part of that, to get parts to do the job in the warehouse. But it's applicable to anyone who's managing a high level of purchasing. But at the same time, it's also worth noting for even those who are managing services contracts, the way you can use contract statuses to inform people. And so I'm just going to select my webinar sector so that we don't have too much data in this demonstration. And I'm going to start with the contracts module. And you can see we've got a nice, neat, there's 3 projects listed here. And I'm going into the Doncaster Road one. And the first bit on this is to look at the status. And what they've done is they've tailored the statusing to communicate where a purchase order is at in the process. And so you can see there's a mix of parts and services in this contract. So it's a bit busy, but you can also filter on any of these statuses just if you wanted to see which ones have been ordered but not received yet, etc. But that's basically what it's telling you as a story. Like, so this material here, whatever it was, it'll probably be described better than that, has been received. So you've actually received those goods. These ones have been ordered, but it hasn't been received yet. And this one has been partially received and haven't received the full order yet. And these ones haven't even had their PO sent out yet. They're still pending for the PO. And so in one screen, a project manager, as in this instance, the person managing the warehouse, and other projects actually that these guys are working on, which are on site for mining sites. The guy based in Sydney can see what parts have been delivered from that just by looking at this screen. The next thing that they do is they default their view to contract dates, because what this does then is it basically tells them when they're expecting to get this particular order in, and that gives them an idea of when things are coming up and when they're going to be able to action certain tasks based on the delivery of a supply of material. So you can imagine that this list gets quite long, but they can, as I said, can filter out the ones that have been delivered and just focus on the ones that have been waiting or the ones that haven't been ordered yet, and gives the people in who need to sign it off a bit of a hurry up to actually get the purchase orders signed off and sent out. Now, to implement this workflow in its entirety, the way you would do it is you would kick off the purchase order, the initial purchase order, purchase requisition, perhaps you could call it, by clicking the plus. Describe the supplier that you're looking for and who you're going to order it from. We're going to get it from Concept Building Supplies, and we're obviously the customer, and we are Birdcat Constructions. It's a pending because it hasn't been issued yet. However, we're submitting it today, and we need it. We need the order to go out today, and we want to receive it to keep our work flowing by the back end of this month, right? So you've kind of communicated that to someone. I'm going to come back to this URL in a moment, but that's another thing we added in to help this customer finish the workflow properly. And they're going to put their specification in. Sometimes that might be uploaded or integrated with some ordering estimate system. Otherwise, they're putting in supply and lineal meters, whatever it is. stuff. And then they'll do that for as many lines as the order they need. And they may not know a rate, so they may just put in they're asking for a quote on this, and so they're just not putting it in. Everything's pending, putting it underneath early works code in this instance. They saved it, and then they would kick off the purchase order from the little plus here. And they select purchase order goods, because there's also purchase order services. And what happens in this is you've got roles that need to sign it off, quite a lot in this instance. And this just will kick off that process, and they'll be notified and to review and to approve the purchase order. And you can have standard boilerplate text come into this template and upload a quote from the supplier if you've already got one as a subsequent stage. And you can see you can't actually send this template straight to signed off. And what happens under the hood when they configure this is it's going to drive the status automatically to move from pending to active awaiting parts. And so I'm Joe Bloggs, so I'm being asked to sign it, and then I'm just going to sign on behalf of everyone else. You can configure it to be whatever you like in terms of delegations of authority around this. And so I've completed that now. If we go back to that contract and I click on the details screen, you'll see that the status is now active awaiting parts. So you're not relying on anyone else to go back into the system and drive that status change. Now what happens, obviously, is someone in the warehouse will receive it, and they'll use our on-site app, or they'll use the web browser to take a photo of the goods receipted. And when they create that document, I'm just going to create it through the web browser on the PC, but they do it on their phone. And this time it's fully receipted. We're going to say it's fully receipted. And so we're going to do the full goods receipt, not the partial receipt. And so again, they create this template to be what they need. You can see that it's selected the contract that I'm in automatically, but otherwise they would select the relevant contract, their purchase order they're receipting. They can, there's actually quite a few steps in their particular one, but I didn't want to rip off all their stuff. This is where the photos would come in. And I'm going to show you something interesting about photos in a moment as well. There's a new feature in that, in the way that they lay out. And then any other information. So that's brought in the purchase order job number straight away. And then that gets signed off because there's no workflow for that. That's just the person receiving it signs it off. And by signing it off, again, what that's done is, the project manager has in their email notification and notify me of documents signed off in the period, and he'll be notified. But equally, he can come in the morning and check, or she, and you can see it says already goods receipted complete. And so when on my dashboard now, some supplier or another is goods receipted complete, and they know that that's happened, and they can then go to the warehouse or action the people who need to use that supply to start their tasks. And so, that's been quite a strong improvement for the way they've been able to track supply coming into their warehouse. And if you're out on job site for a construction, again, the same process could be done there. The only other thing to reference within that, as I mentioned, that URL, it's a new feature. What it enables you to do is you can take the consignment note tracking URL. I'll just paste in this one, and it'll provide a link that you can then, you can see it's a web link now, that when you're looking at that dashboard, you can now just click on that link and it'll take you to the ConNote screen that shows you when it's expected to be delivered. So while they're every day coming in and it says awaiting parts, awaiting parts, awaiting parts, you click on the link and it tells you whether it's progressed down the line in terms of, moved. I had a package get delivered that was from a shop in Sydney that was sent to 7 different Sydney locations before it actually came to my property. So these guys are clicking on that every day to see where that's at and see when it's likely to come in, because they're anxious for these parts all the time, especially with supply chain issues that have been existing across the marketplaces, as we all know. So they introduced that workflow themselves. They built it up. They did a few iterations with us in terms of some consulting and, what other way could we do stuff. There's still some improvements to come around driving these dates based off the signed off documents rather than having to update them manually. But it's a pretty cool little exercise for tracking good supply, and they're really happy with it. One extended version that you can do on this then is to use our Gantt chart capability to then track across the portfolio, which they're also doing. I just need to get a decent timeline in here that has some data. And so I'll just go to all projects because this is more of a portfolio thing. And then what you get within this tracking is you get levels. So this is just showing you the project timelines. If I jump down to contract, you get a lot more information. And if I look at my 956 Doncaster Road, you'll see the supplies here with a baseline and an actual forecast. If I scroll down the bottom, you can see the purple's contracts baseline and the red is actual forecast. The percent complete is progress claims. And so in this company's example, that's integrated with their accounting system. So when the invoices get processed in Unify and then updated from the accounting system, this percent complete comes in. But you can see that the building supply ABC has slipped and it's now looking like coming in April. And you can see that's what's coming in across the platform, across the portfolio of supply. These links also jump you back into the contract, so you can actually click them and come back into the contract and do things straight away from that interface. So that's been a useful way for the guy who actually runs multiple warehouses to look across what they've got them located all over Australia, what's coming in when and how that's impacting on different locations. They can filter for the locations up here and analyze that information in a Gantt form. Okay, so that didn't take as long as I was expecting. Maybe I went a little fast, but it was recorded and you can watch it at slow pace as you see fit. There's only one more in this particular webinar before I get to the sneak peeks of new functionality that will happen when I stop the recording. It's around the way a consultant that uses our system is actually on the call, I think. I didn't see him coming. He was registered to attend. Manages and makes sure he gets really good resource profiles. So say, for example, he's a project manager. They want to let some contracts to a fire safety engineer. Who have we dealt with in the last 12 months around that? And the way he wants it to happen is that when you allocate people on projects, you have roles. And the challenge there is to make sure that people aren't just selecting team member, as is the case here, but actually selecting some sort of role that tells you what they are. So rather than having generic roles like contractor, there's quite a long list of roles like fire safety engineer and acoustics specialist, et cetera. But then the trick is to make sure that you get that right allocation. And the way he manages that is he sets those people up. If I was to go, for example, with Blake Lewis, into the authorized roles. And so Blake Lewis, if I tick this and save, I cannot allocate Blake Lewis, even though they haven't got a license to Unify, I cannot allocate Blake Lewis to any other role other than architect. And so whenever his administrators and project support staff are allocating and working on the allocation of people on projects, they have to put them into the right role. So over time, he builds up this really good quality controlled data set of roles. Now, like all things, when people create these things, there's a definite, someone's wanting to join now, it's a bit late. Anyway, it's a colleague of mine, he's seen it all before. We need to get better outputs for him. But there is out of the box two mildly interesting outputs that you could then do that analysis on. And so in here, there's an export that says resource role export. And if I click on that and I run it, I'll just do the HTML. Whenever you see the word export in a report, the idea is that you'd be dumping it to Excel to do something else. You can see that it has who the client is and the resource name. It doesn't have their organization, so it's not quite as helpful as it could have been. But once you've dumped it out, you can obviously put a filter there and filter for acoustic engineer and get the people and you know who's in that role. The other one is project role count. but like, and you can use Power BI and other things to do your own analysis around that, but it'd be great to get some of this stuff more directly into the interface. So watch this space. You can see in this one, you actually get to filter on the role. And so what this will do is look across your portfolio and tell you, which is a good way of saying this is the capability of the tool. You can actually do this, you know, from a portfolio perspective, how many projects don't have an architect? So if there's a quality control around, you must have a, you know, principal certifier on all jobs, you can make sure that you've got one, and what projects haven't. Again, you might want to look at life cycle phases for that and just look at ones in implementation where it's relevant. But then it also has the ones that are allocated. And if you click on that, it'll take you to the resource page and you can actually see who it is. And so that's great, but it'd be even better if we could just run a report that says, you know, who have we contracted as an architect in the last 10 months, and then what projects can't be a secondary question. And a whole heap of analysis. How much have we let with those people in the marketplace, and, you know, compared to this year to last year, all that sort of stuff is answerable in the data set, but not out of the box report to show it. So yeah, I thought that authorized roles, like that was actually designed to make control around, you know, financials and approving invoices. That was what it was originally designed to. You can't put someone in the CEO role because they're not authorized to be a CEO. So hence you can't have people hacking the system to sign off invoices to themselves and things like that. But this consultant used it for a completely different purpose, as a way of getting quality control and resource allocation, and then using that as a way of knowing who are they contracting with. So I thought that was pretty cool, and I thought I'd bring it to you in this webinar as well. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording now. I'll open up the floor to questions.